What is up, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Today we are checking out the new Bad Cat Jet Black. Now this amplifier is actually based on the Bad Cat Black Cat. The Black Cat was really cool, and according to Bad Cat, a lot of the players that were using those amps were wanting more volume. So instead of being a 2 EL84 output section, it's now a 4 EL84 output section, which is giving you around 38 watts. It's definitely louder, it's obviously louder, but it's also, in my humble opinion, it's very dynamic and open. And it's also a little bit more immediate without being stiff. Sometimes, and once again, this is just my humble opinion, sometimes with EL84 power sections, whether it's 2 or 4, it can be a little too spongy for me. But what I love about EL84s is how dynamic and touch sensitive that power section is, as well as that airy top end, that glassy top end is just always there. So you guys can check that out. But that's what the overall circuit is based on. Now this is a 2-channel amp, so you've got basically a clean channel with a volume and a master, and then you also have channel 2, which is a drive channel with a volume and master, and then you have a shared EQ, bass, mid, and treb, and we'll get into how all of that works together. The drive channel sounds really great. I would consider it a medium gain drive channel. You can get higher gain out of it if you dime it, especially depending on how you dial it. And we'll get into this in the demo too. Everything is a tone control on this amp. But the drive channel feels great. It's great for rhythm stuff. It's actually tighter than I thought it would be, especially when you have the gain a little bit higher. But once again, it's a very dynamic feeling channel. It's definitely a rock and roll player's amp. We'll get into all of that. It also comes with a really nice sounding bias modulated tremolo. We'll get into how that sounds, as well as a studio quality reverb. The reverb is definitely kind of a brighter digital reverb, but it does sound great. We'll get into how that sounds in the mix. It comes with a foot switch, which allows you to choose between the 2 channels and turn the tremolo on and off. On the back, you have a buffered effects loop that works great. I'm not going to get into demoing that, but I can promise you it works fine. Sounds awesome. You've got your usual speaker output accoutrements. You're going to be fine. You'll be fine. There's also there's a foot switch, obviously input jack on the back, as well as a line out. I won't be demoing that, but those types of things are very useful if you're going to run line out into an effects rack that you want to go wet cab, dry cab. You could be running direct and then using IRs. It's obvious what that's for. So without further yammering on, which is what I tend to do, let's check out the Bad Cat Jet Black. Okay, let's make some noise. Here is the guitar without the amp. It's kind of boring. Here's the guitar with the amp. Okay, cool. So just, messing around, dialing in some sounds, going back and forth. Let's start with the clean channel. One thing I do want to address is, like a lot of good tube amplifiers, I think on my channel I've said this probably more lately, but to me, especially on a really good tube amp, every control is a tone control, and I will attempt to explain that. So let's look at just the volume and the master on the clean channel, which is channel 1. So right now, I'll put everything kind of more noonish. So right now, here's what we've got. Now, if I just simply turn up the volume, of course it gets louder. You can hear, obviously, it's louder, but now it's way fatter. There's a bunch more low end. So you can actually use that as a tone control. Like, say you wanted that channel to be a little bit darker. Turn the master down so it doesn't break up, so you're not pushing those EL84s as much. But now you've got more low end and it's a fatter clean. But if we go the other way, now we've got less low end and more top end, and I just compensated with the master volume. And for me, I really like that. Of course, in my humble opinion, on an EL84 amp, this amp is very efficient. It's got a lot of headroom, but in my humble opinion, you're going to start breaking up those EL84s. That's a big part of it. But you can kind of ride that master. This amp, like I said, it's mic'd up in another room with a Royer and a 57 combo. So it's a really nice ribbon mic and a Shure SM57. I've been using that for years. The cabinet is a Bogner 2x12 and it's loaded with V30s. So the cabinet's pretty efficient. You can break up the power section, but that's what's so magical about EL84 tubes. But I would say the way it's set right now in the room is going to be plenty loud. So that's what I wanted to point out. Just sonically, the volume control with the master control is definitely a way to shape the tone of the amp without touching EQ. Speaking of EQ, let's just sweep these really quick. Here's the treble. I'll go off and then all the way up. I really like this treble control. This amp doesn't have a presence circuit, but it's got all that glassy top end that you'd expect from EL84 and EL84 output section. So it's, all that airy, glassy top end is there. But if I dime the treble, it doesn't get super harsh, which is really nice. I mean, I like the treble probably about right there. The mids are fatter on this amp. I'll do the same thing. Here's the mids off. Mids at about noon. Mids all the way up. Now, the mids for me are, it's like a fatter mid. It does bring in a little bit of top end if you dime it. I like it about right there. I mean, obviously your guitar, your cabinet, all that stuff. Let's look at the bass. Now, this amp has plenty of low end. Bass off. Bass all the way up. It definitely gets big. I like it around here. It will add some gain. It'll break up a little bit. Very typical of this style circuit. So we know what's going on with the tone stack. And we know what's happening with the volume. Let's listen to the reverb and tremolo before we go to the drive channel. So here's the verb. It's a more kind of modern sounding, definitely. It's obviously a digital reverb. It's a little bit brighter. I'll turn it all the way up. It's a cool sounding Verb. Like I said, it's a little bit brighter. It'll sit great in a mix. I wouldn't say it's super springy, but it is a nice sounding Verb and very usable. I used it pretty sparingly in that performance pass. It's on all three of the solos, but not super high. But that's how the Verb sounds. Sounds great. Let's check out the tremolo. That tremolo sounds nice. It's really smooth, doesn't get lost in a mix. I used it in that pass, the performance pass, and I thought it sounded great. That is foot switchable as well as channels 1 and 2. So that's clean channel, reverb, trem. Let's check out the drive channel. Already that feels really good without touching anything. I would personally leave that alone. But let's go ahead and sweep that volume. It's going to add a lot of gain. It's going to do the same thing really that the clean channel is. It's going to add some low end, right? Okay, so just messing around with the way the master and that volume control works, it's a lot like the clean channel. If you want this to sound a little more barky, now obviously you need to balance with your clean channel, and you can sort that out. But the gain all the way up does add low end. It stays pretty tight. This is not a high gain channel, so if you want to do some more gain, then I would say hit it with a Klon, hit it with a TS9, hit it with a clean boost. Pick your favorite overdrive boost and you'll get more gain out of it. This amp is very pedal friendly for sure. So I just want to point out the master control with the volume control once again, just for tones. If I turn the master up and the volume down, the gain's about the same, but hear where all that bark comes in? So now we're hearing way more of the actual power tube breakup as well as a little bit of saturation. Crazy touch sensitive. Or we can go the other way. That sounds more modern, but I still hear that EL84 thing that sounds so great. You can turn way down and it still sounds cool. Okay, so now let's bounce back and forth between the channels. Both channels are very touch dynamic. Let's go back to the clean channel and let's just dial the two to work together. I think that actually sounds great. I'm going to roll, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it down a little bit so that I can roll bass up. Let's see what happens, because we're sharing a tone stack. Let's see what happens on the drive channel. So that's really, in my humble opinion, that's pretty balanceable. As I went back and forth, the only thing I did is I realized I would be okay if I wanted to add a little bit more low end to the overall tone stack. It wouldn't have a massive effect on my clean channel, so I went ahead and rolled that up. But the treble and mid were sitting pretty nicely, just going back and forth. And then levels wise, I have plenty of room in the master volume, especially on that channel 2, to actually have that channel 2, if I want it to be more solo channel, in other words, bump higher, I have plenty of room to move there. So that is the Bad Cat Jet Black. If you've got any other questions about this amplifier, definitely go to the Bad Cat website and check it out. And as always, I really appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you next time.